In this episode of Home Built Workshop, I got an organizational project for your guitar setup bench. We're going to build this cool little stand out of black walnut and some 3D printed inserts to help organize nut slotting files. Keeps them nice and neat and looks cool too. I'm Jeff. You're watching Home Built Workshop. Make sure you stick around. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Home Built Workshop. I hope your day is going great. Today's project is a little bit of an organizational project focused around these things. This is a guitar nut slotting file used to, well, cut the slots in a nut for, well, any stringed instrument, I guess. These things come in a bunch of different styles, but this is the particular style in the set that I have. Now, these nut slotting files come in a ton of different sizes, and the biggest challenge that I've found around that is you end up with a lot of different sizes, and sometimes it's hard to find the one that you need. And this is how I've been storing these things for at least the last year or two. This is really just a chunk of 2x4 that I drilled a bunch of holes in there in hopes that this would help keep things organized. And while I guess it's better than these all laying in a pile, it's still not great. They flop around. They don't really fit the holes too well. You kind of have to wrestle with it a little. We need to do something a little bit better. See, I can't even get that out of there. There we go. So I've got an idea that's been rolling around inside my head that I think is going to work pretty good, and I think it'll look a lot nicer too, and we can hopefully stop this flop. There's only really a couple requirements that I want this project to accomplish. One is going to be to not let these things flop around as much as they do, and I also want to have them at a bit of a slope. Sometimes if I'm trying to get to a file in the back, I've got to reach over the one in front, and it just would be nice if they were at a little bit of an angle. I think it'd be easier to get to, and it's got to look nice. That's it, really. So we need to start off by making a new base, and then we can go from there. I found an offcut of black walnut that I think is going to check at least one of the boxes, and that it's going to look good. So now that gives me some blocks that if I then stand up on edge, that's going to give me the height that I'm looking for this project. Actually, I only need 3, so I guess this guy gets stashed away for another project later on. Can't throw away that black walnut. And it's at this point in the process where I ran into a little bit of a wall, and I had to spend a bit of time thinking about how I was going to accomplish the next step. And I also brainstormed with some of the awesome folks that join in my weekly live streams. That's a great place to brainstorm ideas, just get feedback from others. A lot of times it's just me in the shop here and I'm trying to think through things on my own. So I do appreciate the time when I get to brainstorm and hang out with my friends in the live. Now, in a perfect world, in a perfect shop environment, my next step would be to just glue these together. Then I could take this on edge to the bandsaw and resaw that end off of there so that I get my taper so that my files are at a bit of an angle. The only problem is my bandsaw's capacity is less than the height of this. A few options that came up were maybe to use a handsaw and try to carefully cut it off at an angle. That doesn't sound fun at all. I even thought about using a chainsaw, but I couldn't come up with a great way to hold these pieces together if they were all glued up so that I could cut that angle with a chainsaw. I thought about maybe taking it to the belt grinder and just grinding all of that off with a 40 grit belt. But that's going to make a giant mess and is really not all that efficient either. Ultimately, what I decided I'm going to do is not glue these up yet. I'm going to draw out my taper on each piece. Then I can take it to the bandsaw on each individual piece, cut that piece off. Then I can glue everything up. And then most of that taper will be roughed in. I only have a little bit of cleanup sanding, hopefully, to do once that's complete. And it's a lot easier than trying to cut that with a handsaw. So I guess the moral of the story here is don't feel limited because you don't have such and such fancy tool, or you don't have whatever it is that you feel like you don't have. A lot of times, yes, those tools can help make a big difference and could be a valuable addition to your workshop. But if all you have is a benchtop bandsaw, like me, figure out another way to do whatever it is you're trying to do. Don't feel like your hands are tied because you don't have, that fancy thing, whatever it is. There's a lot of ways to get a particular task done. And if you don't have a giant bandsaw to resaw something, maybe a buddy does. Maybe someone can help you with it. Or maybe there's another way that you can do it in your own shop. It might take a little bit longer. It might not be the most efficient way. But I don't know about you all, but for me, myself, I know that I really enjoy accomplishing a task by myself. Even if it takes me a little bit longer, the feeling of accomplishment of getting a particular thing done, especially when you don't have the fancy thing. And by fancy thing, I mean, well, it could be anything. It could be a particular power tool. It could be, I don't know, a CNC machine. It could be a whatever. We all have different needs, different wants, different abilities. Our shops are all different. But if there's something that you feel is holding you back, look for other ways to work around that. One way it was brought up in a recent live stream was that when you encounter situations like this, it's an opportunity to express your creativity. And I thought that was awesome. And that's exactly what this is. Don't feel limited because you can't do a certain thing with the tool or material that you have. Figure out another way to get it done, get creative, think outside the box, and you can accomplish that thing. So next time you feel, man, I really wish I had such and such a tool, just get creative. I'll bet you can find another way to do it. So let's get to cutting these. I'm trying to keep these as even as possible, but I did leave these just a little bit long so that I can square everything up once this is glued together. There we go. Just let that dry and clean up this glue. I always get way too much. It looks like the blocks stayed fairly even. This one slipped up just a little bit, but nothing we can't smooth out. Now I'm going to lay out basically a 1-inch grid based on the center line of this piece. That's going to locate where I need to drill all of the holes to hold the files. To keep this piece level while it's on the drill press, I'm going to use these offcuts as kind of an angle block to help hold everything in place. Now, if I measure both ends, it's nice and even. Otherwise, it'd be kind of tricky to drill this with the slope top. I've got a 3/4 inch Forstner bit in the drill press. I've got my stop set so that I don't drill all the way through the bottom. Now, I guess I just need to make a bunch of sawdust and drill several holes. Just like Swiss cheese. And these shavings smell so good. Look at all that. Since I left this a little bit long, I can now clean up these ends on the table saw. I've already marked out where I need to trim away the material. That way we'll have a nice even spacing around the edge. You know what would be handy right now? If I had a really big file. Oh wait, I ruined that in the video last week. With all the sanding complete, it's time to give our nice black walnut a coat of finish. I'm going to use a really simple homemade finish consisting of equal parts wipe-on polyurethane, mineral spirits, and boiled linseed oil. All we do is wipe it on. This is a really simple finish to use. It's made from things that I typically have here in the shop anyway. You get the benefit of a little bit of polyurethane, but mainly the look of an oil finish, which is what I like. Shake well before using. Oh, come on. Open up. Why won't you open? Oil filter wrench. Let's see if I can spill this all over the place. Oh, good grief. Oh, come on. Will you go big enough? No. Oh, there we go. Who knew a portion of the video would be watching me struggle opening this lid of finish, this jar. We win. Ooh, black walnutty goodness. We'll just let that dry for a little while. Now at this point in the project, you may be thinking to yourself, hey, that's a nice piece of walnut, but it's just got holes drilled in it, like the original method that doesn't work very good. What's the deal? Well, while this finish is drying, let me show you what we're going to use to actually hold the files. I think this is kind of cool. This little guy is what's actually going to hold the file. This is a little 3D printed insert that I came up with that is designed to slip down in those holes that we drilled. There's a slot here which holds the nut files perfectly. It's going to keep them from flopping around too much, and I think it's going to be a really interesting way to hold these. I've got the slot off-centered so that I have room down here to either write on with a Sharpie, maybe a silver Sharpie, or to stick on some numbers to indicate the size. That way you don't have to try to dig around these things and try to see the size. You can see here that I've taken some paint on the back side of these to make it easier to find. I think if I number these inserts, then when it's in place, I can easily see what size file is in the slot without having to try to read the little writing on here. I think it's going to work really good. And with these being 3D printed, well, the sky's the limit with the colors and type of material that you use. You could print these out in all different colors. Heck, you could even color code each one to the file. Maybe you painted the end of your file red and you put it in a red insert and that indicated what particular size. Who knows, but there's a lot of options having this thing 3D printed. The biggest downside is one of these takes just under an hour to print. I need 25 of them. And for those of you that might be interested in trying out these little guys for yourself, maybe you want to make your own organizer of some sort, I'm going to make this STL file that I use to print these available to you for free. I'm going to put a link down below in the video description where you can get it from my website, free download. Play around with it, have fun, and let me know how it works out for you. Let's go check in with the 3D printer and see if my last batch of these is done. All I need to do is remove this little support piece that's in there. I tried printing it without that support, and the end here just got all clogged up. So this has just helped to keep that slot a little bit clear. I'm pretty sure at this point, I don't need to tell you what we're doing next. Just use a big screwdriver to adjust any that didn't quite go in straight. And now we can take our old floppy block here, transfer everything over to the new one. Look at that. I got a few more of these, I believe, in the house that'll almost fill up the rest of these. Which one looks better? I hope you didn't guess this one. This little thing turned out awesome. What a difference this is going to make in the organization of my guitar setup bench. Now, is something like this overkill for what it's doing? Possibly, but who cares? It looks cool, and I feel that having your work area look nice and inviting and neatly organized, I think that is very helpful when you're spending a fair amount of time in a certain area. You want it to look good. So what if it's overkill? I'll probably never have to make another solution to organize these files ever again. I'm really happy I took the time to do this. Even the 24 hours of printing time that it took to print all those inserts. Remember, if you want to try these out, a link to the STL file for the inserts is down below in the description. Hope you guys enjoyed this little organizational project as much as I did. I'm happy to have this done, and I'm going to now go put it in place on the setup bench. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time. Little side note on this little guy, you'll notice I have a little hardwood spline on here because I found that it wants to bend a lot when you're using it. Not long after I made this, I saw that there was a commercially available version released. This one's real wood. Even, I think it's rosewood.